Does marriage and or motherhood ever make you feel like you've jumped from the frying pan into the fire? Well, if so, I think I can help. I've got 6 kids, and my husband and I have been married for almost 21 years. And out of about 13 of the top divorce instigators, my husband and I have, with the Lord, made it through 7 of them and managed to keep the marriage flame alive and burning strong. In this video, I'm going to share a few of the hardest marriage and motherhood lessons that I've learned over the last almost 21 years. Welcome to today's homemaking video. I have a very packed video for you today. I thought we would talk a little bit about love today. I'm going to be doing a little bit of plant care, so I'll have a few plant tips for you. But of course, that's not all. I'm going to share a luxurious Valentine's dessert, what we'll be doing for a family date night at home. I've got a sweet but affordable Valentine's idea that you can do for your family quite easily. And I have some ladies' self-care tips, including perfume. I'm going to show you guys my favorite homemade perfume. So since it is Valentine's week, I thought that maybe it would be fitting for me to share 5 marriage love lessons that I have learned over the last almost 21 years of marriage, and a couple about loving our children. In the Bible, in Titus 2, it commands older women to encourage the younger women to love their husbands and children. A lot of people these days think that I wasn't cut out to be at home with my kids, be with my family so much. Friends, this is a lie. The world has duped our society into thinking. The Bible would not have told the older women to encourage the younger women to do this if it was easy, if it was something that always came naturally. It does not always come naturally. There are times it is going to be a challenge, but hard does not always equal bad. Sometimes it just means there's work to do. I have so much more to say about this, but before I go any further, I wanted to share today's self-care tip with you. Something new I would like to start including in my videos this year is a self-care tip for moms, but not just any self-care tip, a practical, utilizable tip that you can really do. With it being Valentine's, I thought I would share my DIY perfume. I like to use essential oils. I don't like to use synthetic fragrances since they have been linked to hormone disruption, which can cause all kinds of problems, especially for women. Some of my favorite blends are Joy from Young Living and a few others, but singles that you can find anywhere include Palmarosa. It's absolutely lovely. Sandalwood is definitely one of my top favorites, and I absolutely love vanilla too. If you're looking for a nice Valentine's gift for you and your partner, I wanted to show you this. It's a massage tool kit and it works wonderfully. And it saves your hands from getting achy while giving your partner a massage. I will link to this set that I got below in the description. I mentioned hormone disruption. It is such a serious problem. I'm in my 40s, and they say your 40s is when how well you took care of yourself in your 20s and 30s starts to show. And I definitely believe it. I started taking this Solaray Female Hormone Blend to help me through perimenopause years. I can tell such a difference when I take it. You definitely want to consult with your doctor if you think you need something like this, and I highly recommend a functional practitioner, a doctor that is versed in both medicine as well as alternative medicines and methods. And also, before we go on, I will share with you what we are doing for Valentine's. I think pizzas are the perfect Valentine's family dinner. Always a hit and always special. I like to make sourdough crust, and one of my favorite things about them is I can make up extras for meals throughout the week ahead. For a dessert, we're doing tiramisu, and I will show you guys more of that towards the end of this video. But really quick, let me show you the simple and affordable Valentine's gift I did for each one of my kids as well as my husband. I found these adorable they're like Chinese takeout boxes at Walmart, and I just got chocolates for the inside of them. I got my family's favorite chocolates. My husband loves these Lindt chocolates, and the kids, of course, love Hershey's Kisses. I'm probably going to find something else special to stuff inside of here because there is more room to do so. I'm not sure what. If you guys have any ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'm looking for affordable but meaningful little ideas to pop in these boxes. Let's resume today's discussion on love. I have a couple love lessons I've learned about motherhood that I would like to share, and 5 marriage love lessons that I've learned and would like to share with you today. The other day, a discussion came up in the comments on one of my videos. It was the one on what is a homemaker worth and what is a homemaker. One of the women said that she has been told so many times by other women the phrase that you stay home with your kids. I could never do that. I can't be around my kids that much. And a few other women express the same. And I know I myself have heard this from women at times too. Another commenter came on with the argument that some women are just introverts, need alone time, and don't want to sacrifice that. Said that, some mothers don't have a good support system in place, and that some people have parents that treated them like a burden, and how all of this contributes to some moms not wanting to be around their kids. Well, my argument is that personally, I have experienced all of these setbacks. I've experienced severe loneliness as a mom, especially in the early years. Not only have I experienced lack of support, I've actually experienced opposition, quite hateful and malicious opposition, actually. In fact, that's how the ministry of my blog and this channel started. I wanted to help others that were going through the lack of support in motherhood and the lack of guidance and practical advice and validation. This is literally why I do what I do here. It is not normal. It is not natural for a mother to not want to be around her children. Only reason that something like this would happen is toxicity and deep wounds that need healing. Situations like this should never be passed off as, oh, it's normal. It's just the way it is. It is not normal. If you can't stand to be around your children, I very strongly believe counseling is in order for healing. If you're the kind of person who doesn't like being around your children, if you feel like you're an introvert and you don't like being around your children, you don't like having them around, or same with your husband, there can be a variety of reasons for this. But especially when it comes to children, it usually means that a mother has some healing to do in herself. She's got some work to do in herself. And being in that mothering situation all the time is very likely hard because it's bringing up something from the past that we don't want to have to face. It's bringing up areas that we need healing in order to be the best mothers that we can be, and healed mothers, and to get enjoyment out of motherhood. In the Bible, in Titus 2, women with young children specifically are commanded to be keepers at home and to teach and love their children. I don't believe that God would assign a mother with this role and responsibility and then not equip her to do this. It just doesn't make any sense. If God has made you a mother, then He has called you to motherhood, and He will provide you with the tools you need. You may have to seek them out, though. You might have to get more education. If you came from a toxic family background, you're definitely going to need help creating new systems, new patterns, and you will need help breaking old cycles, or should I say family curses. And if you pray and seek help, you will find it. There is help out there. For me, I needed therapy. And what a miraculous, life-changing healing and difference it made. It is always worth growing yourself, seeking healing, but when you've got children, it is even more important, especially if you have trauma in your own childhood or background. With all of that said, there is a difference between not liking motherhood as a general rule and overall, and simply being burnt out or depleted. Everybody does need a break, and we do need consistent breaks in order to rejuvenate and replenish. There are 2 motherhood lessons that I have learned over the years for when I'm feeling overwhelmed, not enjoying motherhood, not enjoying my children. The number 1 lesson that I've learned is when I feel like this, it's usually simply because I'm depleted, I'm overworked. I feel like I've got nothing left to give. So the way out of this is to start to learn to pace oneself. And you can do this even if you've got little, small children. Here's the trick. You got to take breaks. You got to take breaks in the day. Just like if you were working any other job, you have to sit down and take a 10-minute break. Yes, you might be interrupted. Yes, it might take some time to teach the children, Mommy's taking a break right now, but it's so critical to do. If you were working any other job where you were on call 24/7, you would get breaks throughout the day. So set aside some breaks for yourself in the daytime. Make yourself a cup of tea, a beverage, a smoothie, whatever, and sit your butt down on the sofa and just watch the kids. Just watch them, observe how they behave. It'll give your brain kind of a reset. It'll help you problem solve. You'll be a much more effective mother, but just give yourself a moment to not engage unless you really, really have to, and just kick your feet up and relax. Observe what's going on. You'll learn so much about your children. You might even start to find you have moments where you're actually enjoying them more, or just watching them play or do their thing. Again, if you were working any other job, you would be assigned breaks throughout the day. So when you're basically self-employed as a stay-at-home mom, you've got to do this for yourself. And you got to be intentional about it. I don't recommend just sitting there scrolling the internet, because that's not really a break. I actually do enjoy watching a little 10-minute YouTube video or something like that. It feels like more of a break than, say, scrolling Facebook or something like that. I like to pick channels where the content is similar to my lifestyle so that it motivates me as a mother and a wife and a homemaker. Or a homesteader. So that's one of my favorite ways to spend a break. The next secret that I've learned through the years to help me when I'm feeling like this is all work, no fun, I have got nothing left to give. And it's strange. It's a very simple thing. You wouldn't think it would be as effective as it is. But if you're finding that you're really depleted, your kids are always kind of irritable or they're irritating you, here's what I want you to try. Hug your kids more. We all know the science. Hugs release oxytocin, the love hormone, the bonding hormone. Hugs boost our health. They reduce anxiety. The Bible says children are a reward. They're a gift from God. If we're not enjoying them, we're doing something wrong. And one of the best ways I've found to get it right is just hug them more. If you've got teenagers, say, hey, I need a hug. I think you need one too. Could I get a hug? When I first started doing this with my teenagers, they were a little reluctant, but it didn't take much more than a week before they started asking for a hug. They learned very quickly that a hug helps them feel better. And of course, the younger kids are just all over it. They love hugs. They constantly stop me in the hallway. They stop me when I'm walking through the house now, and they give me a hug. And when you have hugs happening in your home, you have a much more peaceful home. People get along better. There's a little less squabbling, a little more peace. Heartstrings are tied, so your children will trust you more. They learn that you really do have their best interests at heart. God designed for mothers and children to have a nurturing, loving relationship. So stop, smell the roses, kick up your feet, and enjoy your children. Make a point to enjoy them a little bit more. and see what happens with your anxiety levels and that overwhelm. Okay, those are my top 2 lessons in loving children and motherhood. So I have 5 love lessons I've learned about marriage that I would like to share. Before I share them though, I do want to do a little homestead update for about 10 seconds. I want to show you guys my Homestead Homemakers Planner. In it, I have notes for each month with things that you might want to consider doing, like this month, you want to start your seedlings. There are certain seedlings that need to be started in February if you want to have them for summer harvest. I'll be starting some of my herbs, some flowers that need to be started, definitely peppers. And although it's a little early, I am going to start a couple tomato plants. I'm going to get to those 5 love lessons about marriage I've learned. Before I jump right into that, let me just explain what's happening in these scenes. I was asked for my angel food cake recipe. It's a gluten-free angel food cake. I do have it in another video, which I will link to below. And I did go ahead and put it on the blog for you guys. So you can find my gluten-free angel food cake recipe on the blog now. All right, so let's talk about marriage. I always hesitate to do this because I am definitely no expert, but I do have some things that marriage has taught me, so I'll share those today. 5 years ago, my husband and I shared 15 things we learned in 15 years of marriage, and this is in a blog post. You can read it. I'll link to it below. Since we celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary last year and are about to celebrate our 21st, I'd like to share 5 more things that 20 years of marriage have taught me. But first, let's go over some marriage statistics. In researching for this, I came across some interesting statistics. There were some things I wanted to research, especially since I am going through a new phase of life due to age. According to a Forbes article I found, around 43% of first marriages end in divorce. 60% of second marriages end in divorce, and 73% of third marriages end in divorce. Divorce rates are going down. However, this could be because less people are choosing to get married. An article on Fatherly stated common divorce years are between 1 to 2 years, 5 to 8 years, and 15 to 20 years. One of the biggest reasons for divorce is actually lack of family support, which surprised me. It accounts for around 43% of divorces, and I have all of the resources and references in the blog post that goes with this. Other reasons for divorce, according to Forbes, include incompatibility, lack of intimacy, too much conflict or arguing, financial stress, lack of commitment, parenting differences, marrying too young, opposing values or morals, substance abuse, domestic violence, physical and or emotional, and pursuing different lifestyles. And the percentages are all on the blog for you. Over the last 20 years, my husband and I have weathered 7 of the above divorce instigators, including the top one, lack of family support. In our case, we actually had people actively and aggressively working to separate us for the first 3 years of our marriage. Through it all, God brought us through. And currently, I'm in those dreaded perimenopausal years, where 60% of divorce is initiated by women. I've come to the belief that if a Christian couple is making it or has made it through the perimenopause years with their marriage intact, they are true warriors to learn from. I can very, very clearly see why the reasons marriage decay through these years. Something interesting I found is, according to an article by healthywoman.org, 60% of divorces are initiated by women in their menopause years. I have a theory on why that is. Science has found that as women start to go through perimenopause, they lose certain abilities for a while that they used to have. And some of the things that decrease are oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, and the hormone that kind of helps us get along. It decreases. Also, we simply lose the ability to multitask and do as much as we used to. And very briefly, if you're in this stage, please read the article on my blog by healthywomen.org because it's really good. And also, you want to have your spouse read it. I think it will help a lot of people just be more educated and prepared. So the other night, my husband and I were talking about how when we were married, we didn't know very much about each other. We met the first time as children at a Bible camp, which was more of a conference. Around 10 years later, we met again as adults. After writing for a few short months in a long-distance relationship, I think it was almost 3 months, We felt like we knew enough about each other, and he popped the question. We had the same beliefs in all the important areas, same ideas about raising children. Attraction was definitely not a problem. What could go wrong, right? Another 3 months later, we said, I do. A few weeks into marriage, though, we realized we knew very little about each other, and it took years to completely wrap our minds around learning who each other was. So in those first months, I learned he chewed tobacco, a little detail he somehow thought he would be able to keep from me. He learned that I had this little problem where I could cuss like a sailor when mad. It was kind of shocking for both of us to get to know each other as the months and years progressed. Within the first years, we faced hardships and challenges that were exceptionally difficult and some shocking. First, God uprooted us from our extended families, who were being vocally divisive. Next, the Lord shook the foundations of our very belief systems that we were raised in. If you've ever experienced something like that, you know how difficult that can be. And this is just to name 2 of the handful of challenges. The only explanation of how we made it to today is God, love, and a belief in commitment. Well, that, and most of the time there's still that old attraction factor that keeps on keeping on. At 20 years, these last 5 years have brought a new season very different from our first 15. We have been faced with new challenges and growth opportunities. The Lord has allowed some additional challenges to befall us that have forced us to dig deep, even looking back into our childhoods to correct some survival behaviors that we took on to protect ourselves and survive as young people. So over the last 5 years, we found ourselves entering a new phase of our relationship. We're no longer in the growing our family in numbers stage, and the time has come to deal with certain issues that were really easy to ignore while busy raising children and having them. It seems this new strange stage that we're still learning to just accept is one of growth and reconnection. We have found that both of us have changed a bit through the years of parenting and providing for little children. It's honestly only been this year that we have begun to learn ways to enjoy this new season and the importance of doing so. Thing is, the Lord doesn't just want us to live in a survival mode forever. He wants us to grow and thrive and learn. So here are 5 things that we've learned over the course of this last 5 years. The first one is marriage is humbling. This was my first lesson in marriage, and it has carried through consistently, even into the 20th year. If you're proud or insecure, it's going to be more difficult. The second lesson is to accept one another because God does. One of the biggest lessons God is working on with me in very extensively over the last year is the true meaning and importance of unconditional love as defined by Scripture in 1 Corinthians 13. You can read this on the blog. You can also just look it up. But over the last year, especially, God has been providing lots of exercises for me in how to show true biblical love. It has been challenging at times, but I have been learning so much. The third lesson is Satan. I'm not sure he ever gives up trying to destroy marriage. He's always at work trying to destroy what God has created. He's always looking for ways to wreck what you have in every area of life, and he loves to convince people that their marriage is not worth holding on to. Just when you think you've weathered the storms and shown the devil his antics will not work, he'll try again. If you have a good and beautiful marriage and you love the Lord, Satan will likely stop at nothing to wreck it. So 1 Peter 8, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. I think all couples always need to be aware of that verse. It is true. As soon as you become complacent, indifferent, or immobile in your walk with the Lord, the devil can find an opportunity. Some of the attempts he has made to destroy our marriage have been so painful that I thought we would never recover, but we did. This takes me to something else really big the Lord has been teaching both of us. No matter what we face, when we turn to the Lord and really dive into Him, He always shows us the way to a higher ground. These last months and years, God has been showing us that if we're in a marriage and if our partner hasn't left, then no matter what the devil's done to stain and wreck a marriage, with God and two willing people who love each other and the Lord, there's always something worth fighting for the relationship for. And the fifth lesson is counseling can help sometimes. I've learned that if you're a big family, not just any marriage counselor will do though. If you got a lot of kids and if you homeschool, you're going to need a counselor that's going to understand those dynamics, because your family, it isn't like other families. So you need a marriage counselor that's going to understand homeschool family dynamics and big family dynamics, or at least be open to listening well enough to understand how those dynamics make your life different. Then be able to give practical advice that will actually work. It is difficult to find counselors for families that don't fit inside the traditional boxes. Okay, I have a bonus lesson. I know I said 5, but I've got one more lesson, is that people change over time. You cannot change your spouse, but God can, and they can and definitely do change over time. But if you let unforgiveness, detachment, apathy, or complacency weasel in and don't feel like you know your spouse anymore, you're in the danger zone. Get back on safe ground by being humble enough to put effort into getting to know each other again. This can be really awkward, more awkward than it was in the beginning of the relationship, especially if you're dealing with any unforgiveness. If you can work through that though, it can be a lot of fun. My husband says, if you found each other the first time and get lost along the way, it's worth finding each other again. Your marriage is worth fighting for. How about you? What are some things that marriage has taught you along the way? I would love to hear from you.
February is the time of year that all of my plants always go through a major growth spurt. I am trying to prepare them for that growth spurt that I know is going to be happening very soon. I like to decorate with plants. I just love having the greenery around me and the life, and plants are my favorite decor. At one point in time, I had 63 or 65 plants. I do have some plant videos for you guys. I will link to them in the comments below. And they are kind of like beginner plant tips that I've learned through the years along the way. There are some plants that are better to start with than others. One of my top secrets in keeping my plants alive is to pick low maintenance plants that you can kind of forget about and not have them die right away. I do not have any luck with succulents. They're the one plant I keep trying. I once had a beautiful string of pearls. I killed it somehow. I don't really know how. I just can't seem to get how to water succulents down. This is a peace lily. This is probably the most high maintenance plant that I have. Very rarely does it bloom because I don't take well enough care of it for it to bloom. I consistently let this thing get too dry. It starts to wilt, and I'm like, oh no, we have to water it. So I water it, it comes back. And if I had it in a brighter area and watered it consistently, it would definitely be blooming or have the white peace lily more often than it does. But this is definitely the most high maintenance plant that I have. The next high maintenance plant will probably be this one back here. I love this plant. This plant is good in windowsills. This one is called a croton. It's very dusty. I need to get it cleaned off, the leaves cleaned off. This one will lose a leaf if you forget to water it and it gets too dry. So sometimes when I see it lose a leaf, I know I waited too long. But the whole thing doesn't die, it just drops a leaf. Right now it's pretty full. It is one of those plants, it's one of the actual only plants that like to have direct sunlight. Most indoor plants are jungle plants. They like to be under other plants or inside of a house where they have indirect lighting, not direct. This one is one of the only ones, one of the very few plants that likes direct light, so direct sunlight. It loves it. It's also a plant that hates to be moved. So I need to get this thing saturated with water and back to where it belongs quickly, because it's not going to be happy if it's away from its spot for very long.
This time of year, in preparation for the growing spurt that I know these plants are about to do, I like to take them all and fully water them and let the water drain out, and then water them one more time just to assure all of the roots are properly watered and have enough moisture. I also like to wash the leaves. Some of them I can just spray them down like you see here and it washes the dust off. But some of them, especially the more broad-leaved ones like this snake plant, they don't wash off very easily. So I find I have to actually take something and run it over the leaves. They're always so shiny after I do this. The last thing that I like to do is make sure they have enough fertilizer. The fertilizer is gonna really give them what they need for that big, beautiful growing spurt that they're about to take off on.